Ah, yes. It's that time of year again. Leaves are turning colors, candy is filling shelves, and it's time to brutally mutilate a gourd in order for the spirits to bless this year's harvest. But what's that? You're terrible at carving pumpkins? Not to fear, art lady. You can simply be lazy and paint on your pumpkin. Look at how much easier it is, and it's so much more humane.
What's up, fellas? In case you haven't noticed, I really like fall and Halloween. And while carving pumpkins is very morbid, which actually just kind of adds to the appeal, it has always been one of my favorite fall activities. It's something that I look forward to every year. It's tradition. But there is just one catch. I am very, very bad at it. I don't know what it is about carving pumpkins, but I've just never been able to do it well. Every time I do it, it just turns out mediocre at best. Like the people who can do this stuff, I don't know how they do it. And while I'd love to attempt some kind of very complicated design that's got like dimension and pumpkin still in there so it diffuses the light, I know I'm just gonna mess it up, and I don't feel like putting you guys through that. So today, instead of taking a risk and an adventure and doing something that I know I'm not very good at and carving a pumpkin, I'm gonna do something well within my comfort zone that I know that I'm pretty good at. I'm just gonna paint on a pumpkin. Sometimes it is okay to just go through life coasting and learning nothing new and staying within your comfort zone. I just wanna go easy on myself because my birthday is this week and I deserve it. If you would like to sacrifice a gourd along with me, I encourage you to do so. Either carve your gourd or paint on it like I'm doing. It's really fun. And if you do mutilate fruit while watching this video, be sure to send it to me on Instagram because I would love to see it. Okay, before we actually get started, I don't actually have a pumpkin yet, so we should probably go and grab a pumpkin. It's pumpkin time. So I got in my red box with the wheels on it and teleported over to the local produce stand, and the selection was overwhelming. Which pumpkin was going to become my future canvas, I thought. I felt like Michelangelo, looking past the fleshy exterior of every pumpkin to see the art piece it could become. Of course, I wasn't going to carve mine, so that is where the analogy falls apart. Finally, this beautiful little oversized squash spoke to me, so I took him home. Look at him. So cute. So, I was gonna do this outside, not in front of my green screen in my basement, but as a result of my awful planning, there's rain today. So much rain. So we're doing this down here instead, and I'm gonna try my best to make the ambiance equally fall and spoopy. I'm not so sure how that's gonna go, but the green screen here should be able to help us to achieve some kind of vibe. In an effort to make things more festive, I brought some half-eaten candy with me, courtesy of my friend, thank you. And I'm also drinking some peppermint tea out of my favorite mug, so cozy. Because it's spoopy season, I'm wearing my Ghostbusters shirt, just to make sure that if there's any ghosts in the vicinity, they are appropriately busted. Piss off, ghosts! We're gonna have fun today. But because I am extremely indecisive, I took the liberty of doing the basic sketch for this off camera, and I also filled in a little bit of white just to get the flat colors kind of started. I ended up going mostly with the concept of the second piece of inspiration that I showed you guys, but with a twist. These are my Spoopy OC's characters. I have Orchid here, and then Rambler and Paul, just carving a pumpkin, which is ironic because I'm not carving a pumpkin. So we're just gonna start with some flat colors and go from there. I think I'm gonna use my Morphone paint pens for some of the flat colors here because they just so happen to have some colors that match my character's skin tones pretty well. I love how Paul is so emo that he's just deathly pale. These paint pens are definitely really helping me to speed up the process because normally whenever I do a painting like this, I have to go in with like a paintbrush and fill in every single little place with flat color so that I have something to paint and blend on top of, but with these I can just draw it on, so it's pretty nice. If you've never painted on a pumpkin before, the surface texture is weird. I like how different this orange looks from the actual inside of a pumpkin. Kinda wish I had just kept like the pumpkin flesh here and been like pumpkinception, you know? Because the pumpkin would look like a pumpkin then. Art. I continued to work diligently, gingerly painting the flat colors onto the flesh of my gourd. The weird plasticky texture of the pumpkin was definitely fighting with my paint pens on this a little bit. Sometimes they'd be really juicy and other times they just wouldn't work. So here's your friendly reminder that layers are your friend when using fruit as your canvas. You might have to build up the paint a bit to get a good blend, but ultimately the paint pens were a far faster alternative to doing this first layer with a brush that would have taken way too long. So I've already gone in and roughed in most of the flat colors, and I think the next step should be to add a nice nighttime sky / sunset background, because I feel like it's just gonna make the colors really pop, especially with this orange. So let's have at it. Painting a sunset like this, I like to do a nice fade from the bottom up to the top, because whenever you have a sunset, you can normally see light coming up from like the horizon, and then the part at like the top of your canvas or your sky is going to be the darkest part. Here I'm just taking some really dark blue and purple and kind of mixing it together, and I have like oranges and pinks at the bottom, and I'm going to kind of make them just converge in the middle to create just like a very vibrant kind of fade for the night sky. How's y'all's day going? It's going pretty good. I'm painting a pumpkin. Earlier today I went to the thrift store again and I spent too much money. At this point I'm in that thrift store multiple times a week in the fabric section. I feel like I've been getting weird looks because they're like, why is this girl in here every single day buying curtains? I mean, I get it. How could one person possibly need that many curtains? You only have so many windows in a house. How does Bob Ross paint and talk at the same time? I've always wondered that. He can just go in there and paint and talk, and he's like, look at that, it's a tree. I'm like, I can barely draw a tree whenever I'm not talking. How do you expect me to talk and explain how I'm drawing the tree? That's what voiceover is for. This is my attempt at doing the Bob Ross thing and trying to talk while I paint. Probably isn't going to last that long, because if I do this for much longer, we're going to have a few too many happy accidents, if you know what I mean. It's like so hard to focus on painting and talking at the same time and just go quiet, and then I'm like, I forgot every single word in the English language. Okay, so I've got all of the flat colors pretty much done now. Like, it's a little rough. Now that we have a base to work on, I'm going to go in with actual paint and paintbrushes and start cleaning things up and detailing everything. While I'm filming, I'm watching Back to the Future, and I'm eating Cheetos. It's a good night. Me when I'm listening to Paramore in my car. When I'm refining characters or sketches, I tend to start with the important parts first, because like I've said in the past, I'm afraid that if I don't, I will mess them up. I began adding some warm patches to everyone's skin, some rough shadows, and some definition to the clothing, and mostly worked on painting the jack-o'-lantern to make it look like it was glowing. Glow effects are always a little tricky with acrylic paint, since things can only get so bright or vibrant, so when I paint highlights and shiny bits, I tend to use contrast to make them pop more. By contrast, I mean contrasting colors, for instance the edge of an orange touching the edge of a blue, or contrast in the sense of value, maybe a very light color next to a very dark color. It just makes the light colors really pop next to the dark ones because, like I said, there is so much contrast. The background also did wonders for the contrast since the blue was so dark and vibrant, and I feel like the darker purple in the grass on the bottom of the composition and the darker blues in the sky draw the eye to the center where the characters are, which was unintentional, but a nice touch. I want to get better at using colors to guide a viewer's eye around a composition because it can be really effective, but it's nice to see that some of those skills are just developing like subconsciously, but I do want some of those skills to become more conscious so that I can actually improve them. Rim light is also a great way to make things look glowy, so I began painting in a bit of rim light on Paul's hoodie and on the lower bits of their faces. Rim light is also great for adding dimension and showing the planes of a character, especially for more two-dimensionally designed characters like these guys, so immediately it helped to sell the effect of the glowing pumpkin and the night sky and just helped to have dimension in the scene because things were looking a little bit flat there for a while. I tend to go for that more color blocky style of painting when painting more cartoony characters with acrylics, but I still use some more painterly looking techniques like for Paul's hoodie and the flesh of the pumpkin. It's mostly just a judgment call. Whenever I see a large color block that's looking kind of plain, I add some painterly strokes just to make it look more visually interesting and not dull and boring. because we're trying to avoid that. I also used a mostly lineless art style for this piece, but sometimes I do use lines or rim light to separate different blocks of color, just because some of the colors I was using just didn't have a lot of contrast with each other, so I wanted to create a line just to cut up some of the blocks of color a little bit and add, you know, more dimension. A lot of times I like to think about it less as using a line and more as using like a darker shape to cut things up. You know how like in anime they have the shadow under the chin? I use that a lot in my art style, and I've used that principle to create other shapes just to cut up different characters and add like darker bits in contrast. I find it to be just really effective whenever you have an area that's like not gonna really have any light, to just put a nice dark little shape there to show that there is no light in that area. Hey there, I've got a little update for you. I've kind of gone in and been detailing some things. I'm pretty happy with how it's coming along. There's just still a lot more to go than I wish there was, and it's getting late and I'm getting exhausted. It's about 10 p.m. and I just made myself a cup of coffee and I have to get up tomorrow, do class first thing in the morning. A lot of good decisions are being made here tonight. I'm gonna try my absolute darndest to power through and actually finish it up, so just send me encouragement through the screen from in the future. What? Apparently when it gets late, my brain leaves my body and my artistic ability goes with it. Let's hope that that's not the case tonight, because I actually need my artist skills to come through for me here. Oh boy, let's keep going. So I think I hear a gremlin at the door. Let's go see what it wants. Gremlin, what is it? Have you come to be emotional support while I struggle? From here, it's mostly just adding layers to build up opacity, refining, and then clean up. As you can see in the footage, I had to go over the area where the pumpkin was quite a few times to get the lighter parts to actually pop and the flesh to look more vibrant. As far as the colors were concerned for this piece, it actually ended up coming together fairly easily since my characters were designed to look nice together, as well as designed using Halloween-themed colors in the first place. What can I say? Sometimes it just helps to have a couple of spooky characters in your back pocket when Halloween content time rolls around. For the more detailed areas like the faces, hands, and hair, I used my extra fine brush so that I could achieve a really fine line. If you don't have fine brushes, I really recommend investing in some because they're really great for doing more detailed watercolor and acrylic pieces. I literally don't know what I would do without these. Probably cry and mess up my paintings with big chunky brushes. From here, it's just adding in details and adjusting the lighting a bit. I tried to deepen the shadows between the characters to increase the contrast a little more, and then the final step was really to make sure all the edges on the faces were nice and cleaned up. And finally, of course, add the rim light from the full moon onto my characters. I can't help myself. This is definitely my favorite part of making an illustration, and I don't know what's wrong with me. I have a rim light problem. We are finally almost done. We just have a couple of finishing touches first, and then I think I'm going to say that it is finished, because there's no sense in putting much more detail into something that's just going to decay in a month. Seems a little silly, but I do want this to look good, so let's finish it up. And many hours later, we are finally done. I don't want the neighborhood kids to destroy it. This took me a lot longer to do than I thought it did. That's just the story of my life. That's the story of this channel. Whenever I make an art of any kind, it takes way, way longer than I ever expected it to because, well, I'm slow and I'm also bad at planning. But I'm honestly super happy with how it came out. I think for something that's supposed to be like a fun painting video where I just have fun and enjoy myself and make something a little bit wacky, it is exactly what it needs to be. Could it be more detailed and have some better anatomy and be just like a little bit better in general? Yes, absolutely, but unfortunately this painting is also going to decay in about a month. So I think if I put more effort into it and I worked really hard on it, it would make me really, really sad to see it disintegrate, but I think it's also something kind of special about this painting. It's only here for a short time, but it is also immortalized through video. Well, that's it for this video, folks. Thank you so much for watching this far and bearing with me. I know that this video was probably maybe not the smoothest, just because figuring out how to film this pumpkin painting was a little bit difficult logistically. It was just hard to get good angles, and it was hard to get my camera to focus sometimes. So if there are some rough spots, I am very sorry for that. But all the same, I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope that you would consider subscribing and turning on notifications, because if you do, you will get notified sometimes whenever I upload new videos, and I'm planning on making a lot of similar spooky content this month. So if you enjoyed this and you want to stick around, go ahead and do that. And if you want to help me even more, go ahead and leave a like and a comment to stimulate the algorithm, because she is one hungry bit. Be on the lookout for more spooky content, hopefully coming your way next week. But for now, I'm afraid I have to go. I'm very busy. I have to go and present this painted gourd to the spirits in hopes that they will accept it to bless this year's harvest. And if they don't, well, you don't want to know what happens.